2, 1. And we are recording with Roger Williams, episode 883, Sunday, August 14th, 4:06 p.m. Eastern time. He just said he loved that picture I sent you. There's a guy that reached out to me on Twitter, and I will find his username for you. And I know you're not on Twitter,
Yeah,
but
I don't twat.
it's Mark Joe, Marc, last name Joh. And yeah, he reached out to me and with like a sketch of like somebody that like caught my eye. I forget who it looked at. Maybe it was me. And he was like, "Hey man, like I kind of do these sketches on the fly." He was like, "I don't know if you'd be interested in using them." He was like, "No, you don't have to pay me anything." He was like, "Just tell me who your guests are." And so I was like, "We've been trying it out." And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, I texted him last night. I was like, "Roger's tomorrow. Do Roger." And he got back to me in like 20 minutes. I thought it was
Yeah.
fantastic.
It
Yeah.
was it's really good because it shows it has a great economy of actual marks. You know, it catches that
The significant
image
features. Yeah.
with the minimum of actual detail work and all. And I love the expression he caught,
Yeah.
which was me sort of being
Yeah. Yeah.
the joy of knowing shit.
Yeah. No, that's what he sent me a couple. And that's the best way I said it, the economy of because it's not like a hyper realism detailed. He sent me a couple. Mike
No, that's
Vecchione.
art.
Yeah, he
It
sent me
is like the
Vecchione.
distilled essence of art that
Yeah,
it
is
is
the
like.
ability to capture. And it's he sent me Dr. Malone, Mike Vecchione, Claire Lopez, the guy I had him before this, Micah Dank. And yeah, no, nails him. There's no like, who's this? He nails him perfectly. So shout out that guy. And I'll put his Twitter. Well, it's wherever. I think I've been putting it in the description. If not,
Yeah.
he's for anybody listening. I'll plug
It's
it real
YouTube.
quick.
You put it in the description down
It's
there.
not. It's shut up. It's me
Well,
at
not
Mark
YouTube. It's
at
Rumble.
Sheriff Gonzo. That's his YouTube Twitter handle, Sheriff Gonzo. And yeah, he puts up some awesome shit. So I'm gonna try out using those as some thumbnails. So that's your thumbnail for today, Roger. Is that
Hey, that
that
works.
sketch of you? But
So
Roger, take it away. It's all yours.
we have a reading on deck,
Gucci.
which I think you will like because we will re-encounter the assassin who tried to kill our major characters in the last reading.
Beautiful.
So let me. Let's see. That's not what I meant to do. What I meant to do is this, and then I gotta do squish it so that it fits here, and then I have to move. Computers are so fucking complicated.
They're fake and gay. They're not real. They're fake and gay.
Okay, so we've got book 2. Today we'll be doing what was originally published as parts 25 through 28.
And so what would that be for me?
2.
14 or 15?
This will be your part 14.
Okay.
And 15 will finish out book 2. And books 3 and 4 will go much quicker. They will be much denser because we've done the groundwork. We've done all the world building, so we can get to the good stuff and the fancy stuff happening a bit quicker than we were able to in the earlier books. Because we know how fold drives work. We know how all of the background stuff goes. So on to actual Reddit on my thing. So after everybody's implants got unlocked and all that good stuff, 3 months later, we returned to the Nostromo after a longer than usual absence. Although everyone just assumed it was another one of our jaunts with the curators, it had actually been anything but. The curators that were our friends were carefully trying to figure out why the ones who weren't our friends had tried to assassinate us and how deep that plot went within their ranks. Meanwhile, we kept the lowest profile possible by recruiting Quentin to accompany us with the improbable alibi on a little expedition outside of the Milky Way. It gave us an opportunity to carefully think about what we wanted to do next. On our return, Emma and I went straight to the fab shop where we asked the materials manager if they had any big ball bearings. How big? She asked. Emma held her thumb and forefinger about 6 centimeters apart. We got that, manager said. She led us to a large set of sliding drawers stuffed with metal spheres, all accurate to 1,000th of a millimeter, although I don't get the sense that you care about that. Emma picked up 2 of them, tested them for heft, and nodded. These'll do. Next, we went to the leaderboard room and found Zeke. I want to set up a hunt, she said to him. You? A hunt? Yeah, that one. And she pointed to the leaderboard for the largest and most ferocious predator on the world, affectionately known as Murdersaurus to the team members. Well, I got that one first, Zeke said. Tell me something, Emma said, pulling one of the ball bearings from her pocket. If I throw one of these, does that count as barehanded or is it passive? If you throw it without an aid like an atlatl, it's still barehanded, just as if you picked up a rock. But you can't kill a 10-meter tall killing machine with a hand-thrown ball bearing. Oh, you have no idea, she said. Set it up. Zeke looked at me, and I just nodded. After Emma walked out, Zeke said, well, it's her funeral if we can find any body parts to bury. Just prepare to be surprised, I said, and be ready to barbecue. We had considered many ways to let the team know that we wanted them to switch their focus. It was Emma who decided we should do something really dramatic to get everyone's attention. And since she was the warrior between the 2 of us, I agreed to her plan. Zeke was not the sort of person to express uncertainty about anything, but he was visibly shaken by the situation as we prepared for the hunt. We're about 3 clicks from your target, he said. You sure you don't want to take along a plan B? Oh, I am, Emma said. She showed him the 2 ball bearings, 1 in each hand. I'm bringing 2. If the first one doesn't do the job, I'll have a spare. Zeke looked at me again, and when I grinned, he just shook his head. We were, after all, still his king and queen, even if those were almost entirely ceremonial titles. But then, as they headed down the shuttle, Emma started to disrobe, and he nearly lost it. What are you doing? Making sure nobody accuses me of cheating, she said as she pulled down her pants. Are you going to face off against a 50-ton killing machine naked? Almost everyone in this galaxy does everything naked except for members of one certain species with a massive body image hang-up. And do you really think a layer of cloth would make a difference if I didn't have a plan? So she set foot naked onto the soil of Terra Nova, 1 kilogram steel bearing in each hand, and boldly approached the predator. It noticed her and tilted its head in that "Are you crazy?" gesture all parrot owners would recognize. Emma put her hands together and bowed her head. What the fuck is she doing? Zeke said. She is apologizing to the animal for what she is about to do, I said. She's about to get swallowed whole. She is in no danger whatsoever. Just watch. The animal watched her wind up for the pitch, obviously not understanding why this tiny morsel wasn't running for its life, and then she threw. By the time the ball bearing reached the animal, it was traveling 50 kilometers per second. After traversing the animal's body and piercing its heart without slowing down much, it went on to orbit Terra Nova's sun. The animal reacted as if it had just felt a sting, and there was a moment when it looked like Emma might have to use her second ball bearing, but then it collapsed, and when its breathing ceased a few moments later, Emma casually tossed the second bearing over her shoulder and approached the carcass. She climbed atop its head, placed 1 foot on the massive beak, and waited for the photo drone to show up. When we got back to the leaderboard, Emma had been added, but her entry for the first bare-handed kill had an asterisk. Hunter used a cybernetic implant, which is allowed because it fit entirely within her body and did not alter her external appearance. After that, of course, everyone wanted to know how the hell she did it. Emma was making her pitch to the engineers who would have to follow our directions to create nanoassemblers on a scale only the curators themselves have ever achieved. I addressed the biology team, which had come to assess the biosphere of a doomed planet, who now needed to use their tools to recreate the mortality cure. I had covered a 10-meter long whiteboard with symbols as my audience assembled. I'm not here to tell you how to kill a murdersaurus with a ball bearing, I said, and there was weak laughter. Emma's going over that with the mech guys. I'm here to talk about immortality. After that, you could hear a pin drop. You have all gotten the gift we call the boost, which slows aging but doesn't reverse it. The oldest living human is about 205 years old as I speak, and she is rather decrepit. Meanwhile, Emma and I are about 170 years old, and you can see what ours looks like. Who wants our version? There was a lot of nodding, but one person said, there aren't enough of us to do the kind of research that would take that even in a boosted lifetime. That would be true, I answered, except there is no research involved. We can tell you every step that needs to be taken. You won't be stepping blindly. We have full understanding of the technology. We don't have the means to implement it ourselves, but with our guidance, you do. And what do we get for helping you? The biolab head asked. You get an expected lifespan of 50 to 100,000 years, I said, in a state of youthful health, strength, and appearance. And that gives you plenty of time to cross the I's and dot the T's to extend it even further, possibly to as long as 1,000,000 years. That is the basic purpose of the longevity cure. It's based partly on genetic modifications and partly on bio-nanites, which we would need our colleagues on the other symposium to help a bit with, to clean up the things that our genetic mechanisms can't quite manage on their own. What about Terra Nova? Another voice asked. It has become clear to us that this project was folly and that we cannot avert the curator's plans for this world. Having assembled this team, though, we think we can put you to better use than murdering animals that our curator friends are going to murder anyway. What will the curators think of this? Another called. That is the big question, and we have an answer for you. But it's a topic we need to take up with all of you, not just the experts in one field or another. Emma should be wrapping up her presentation with the tech guys, and then we would like to address all of you at once to let you know our ultimate plan. How'd it go? Emma asked when we met during the intermission. About like you'd expect when you offer someone the fountain of youth. And yours? About what you'd expect when you offer someone the chance to become Superman. As we walked out together to address the whole crew, we were greeted with applause. Since Emma had kicked it off by wielding the ball bearing, she kicked off our final presentation. Some of you have probably been catching each other up on our two symposia, and all of you are probably seriously wondering what we've told you is really possible and whether you should seriously consider giving up your previous goals to follow ours. This is what this meeting is about. There is a political rift brewing among the curators as we speak, I said. This is extremely dangerous because the curators are not accustomed to having such conflicts. We cannot tell which side will prevail or if either side can prevail. We know that even individual curators are insanely powerful beings, and if even a few of them set about our extermination at our current level of technological skill, they would probably succeed. The whole audience let out a collective gasp. To some curators, we are the ultimate expression of the intent of their ancestors who created the Garden of the Milky Way something like 7 billion years ago. They reasoned that the ancestors must have been much like humans themselves since they weren't curated and they created all of this. But the ancestors themselves are no more because their sun burned up their foam world as it aged into a red giant. And the ancestors did not attempt a diaspora such as we have made. And to the other curators, Emma continued, we are a viral disease infecting their garden and ruining a stability they have guarded for aeons. They detest our innovation, and even more, they detest our tendency to share what we have made with others. If these curators become ascendant, we do not believe they will tolerate Earth as is currently run. They might tolerate the colonies, which have a less aggressive economies, but then again, we know that they once folded dozens of worlds into their suns to stop what they saw as a disease affecting their garden. Fuck them, it's our world, someone shouted, and there was a chorus of, yeah! But that's not what the curators think, I said. This is their garden full of worlds that they made, one of which happens to be the Earth. And there is an observation I made a long time ago when the civilian native I called Kay told me about the mark of the curators. To a certain extent, the curators must believe that they own all the things that they have grown in their garden. Well, we're not marked. They must not think they own us. That is exactly true, Emma said. Just as you don't own the fox that is eating your chickens. Those are vermin, and you exclude or kill them, and you probably feel no guilt about doing so. Then it's war, another voice called. And as things stand, it will be a very short war, which will end in our annihilation. We have a very practical reason for offering to help you recreate these technologies for human use. If we don't do this now, we may not have a second chance. What are the odds? What are our chances if we do nothing? Emma looked at me. If we do nothing, the odds are unknowable, I said. At least one curator is a dear friend, and others have worked with us and helped us learn their ways. But another just tried to kill two of us and nearly succeeded. There was another collective gasp. They may finally decide to leave humans alone. They may decide to neuter Earth's governance and insist on we stop innovating, or they may wipe us out as a precautionary measure. We can only say that one of these things will eventually happen. I bowed my head. And I have to be honest about another thing. If we launch this project and they realize what we are up to before we succeed, they will almost certainly do everything in their power to stop us. They have never known an enemy who met them at technological parity. They only tolerate the witnesses who have the longevity cure because they prostrate themselves by offering the curators free passage through their fold inhibitor. Some time ago, our curator friend mentioned that if we had set up an inhibitor instead of the span limiter that now protects the Earth, they would have destroyed it. They do not like for others to have power over them, and they will go to great lengths to prevent that. The Red Prince stood up, and everyone looked at him. It was, after all, technically his mission. And how do we keep it secret? We all know that if your conspiracy involves 3 people, that's too many. We do it all here at Terra Nova. The curators are all in agreement that none of them should come here until we succeed or admit failure at the folly project of wiping out the giants. So we continue to host tourists and hold hunts, but at the labs, we will not be working on better killing machines. We sneak in more resources as we need them, with little risk since only we will be watching. How do we know that they will continue the quarantine? Motivation. The ones who want us to succeed would not want to contaminate our success with the suggestion that they helped. And those that want us to fail would not want to contaminate their opportunity to gloat with the suggestion that they sabotaged us. These are ancient beings, and they can be both very smug and very patient. This is a chance to use that against them. So let me put it like this, Red said. We're about to be kicked out of the casino, and that casino is our home world in our galaxy. But we got one more roll at the table. We can walk off, hope for the best, or we can go all in. We fuck it up, we just get unlucky, and we're done. Not just here, but the whole human race. At best, we become what? Pets of the curators, like all those other species that bear their mark? I think that would be the best case scenario, Emma said softly, whether we do nothing or go all in and lose. But we get a point and make it. And we win the house. Free trips to the show, a tab at the bar. The Elvis guy takes our requests. And oh, yeah, we get to live forever and play Superman. That about right? Not necessarily this galaxy. The curators would still be here, but we at least would win the chance to keep playing. I wanted to say one more thing, but we had agreed to hold it back for now. Well, that still sounds better than getting zeroed out. Emma said, "It's a bet I would take any day, but I can't take it for you or for any of you." "Tell me something," Red said. "When you were out there, naked, facing off against the Murdersaurus, your husband here told my best hunter that you were in no danger whatsoever. Is that true?" "It is. We can fold out at will to the surface of any habitable world in the galaxy. In the blink of an eye, we can return to the Earth or visit Prometheus or even Kattegat. And even if we are inattentive, our implants implement the wisdom of aeons of our experience. Our implant saved us when the Yakuza ambushed us with the fold inhibitor. Another curator just went to a great deal of trouble to kill us, and yet we are still here. These are powerful modalities, and we need to have them for humans, or we will have no defense if the curators decide we are too much of a bother to tolerate. And you can give us these same powers? Eventually. We need to build up an infrastructure of nanoassembly and gene and protein editing. The curators have had that infrastructure for so long, most of them don't even remember how it was originally assembled, but the implants do. And that's how you know all this through your curator implants? Yes. Then why would any of it be a surprise to the other curators? I was about to speak, but Emma cut me off. Because we hacked our implants. Everything the curators know about computer security could be written on your thumbnail in 24-point type. I looked at her a bit sharply, and she returned the look with a bit of a "trust me" semi-blink. Later, after we shook everybody's hands and everybody went to their cabins to get drunk and think it over, and we were back in the privacy of our own cabin, I said, "Is there some reason for pretending it wasn't just goddamn luck that the secrets got unlocked?" Well, it wasn't really dishonest. It was data security incompetence. But there's another thing. You realize within a few years, one of two things is going to happen. If the curators find out what we're doing too soon, then all of these people are going to be dead. But if that doesn't happen, then all of these people are going to become gods. And since that's the only outcome worth planning for, you want to get them used to thinking like gods, I finished. She nodded, and we put away the rest of our liter of wine in comfortable silence. Book 2, Part 26. The Red Prince hosted our meeting with the leaders of the four political parties that had once been the governments of separate nation states at a sprawling Australian estate. Our implants would warn us if any of the dozen or so curators resident on the earth tried to use their own implants to surveil us, but we were safer from conventional electronic snooping on Red's home turf. The leader of the Yakuza party currently occupied the rotating position of chief executive, but this position was almost as ceremonial as mine and Emma's were as royalty, since hardly anything could be done without the agreement of the plurality of the combined legislature. Two of our guests had been among those we had abducted to encourage the unification of Earth's government. There were no hard feelings, though, and we had all took a shot of fine Australian scotch to toast each other's continued good fortune. After a little small talk, Red got to the point. How many of the great fold ships of the diaspora could we make disappear without raising too much notice? He asked. The chief executive nodded toward the Australian party leader. These fellows generally take care of the fleet, he said. About 10 of them are parked on very publicly and open for tours. Several of those are in large lots where others are visible, so there's about 30 that would definitely be noticed by someone. There's 10 more that were left with the colonies, also for public tours, so the occasion's odd It's less stuff. And there's a population of space nerds who are obsessed with foal ships who sometimes come to the remote yards, which are supposed to be closed. And it's kind of hard to hide a kilometer tall ship. So, depending on how quiet you want to keep it, that leaves the 8 on the moon if you can't come up with a cover story. Red looked at us. Jay, Emma? We need at least 4, Emma said. One of the ones on the moon is regularly visited by the colonists, but the others are pretty well isolated. With full tech to go to habitable worlds, there is never really a good reason for a large lunar colony. We mostly there to do research. It can't be done on the Earth. Those ships were among the first that we mothballed after the diaspora wound down, and for a while they were used by the colonists, but then abandoned for more diversified underground accommodations and science mandated. How long will you need them? The executive asked. You won't be getting them back. And we will also need to take the nano assembly research team you've assembled at Melbourne. I would suggest a cover story about how their expensive institute is disappointing progress. In one sense, you're not asking for anything we can't give you, the executive said. But in another, you're asking for quite a lot with no explanation. The less you know about what we're up to, the better, Red said. My king and queen have given me a quest, which I have accepted. You know their powers, and you know by long association. You know I would not be asking a thing like this if there was not a very good reason. And I will offer you a trade which might not be even, but which I think will impress upon you how serious this is. I will donate this estate and all of its contents to your government. You see, I do not anticipate returning from this quest to settle here again. That got their attention. Red, this is your home, the Western Party representative said. Sometimes home has to move. A lot of us learned that the hard way when the ice caps melted. Is that what this is? Is it that serious? The executive looked at me and Emma. My God, is it the curators? Red looked at the Australian leader. You once gave a fine speech about how it isn't in our nature to stand comfortably in second place. Well, Jay and Emma are curators themselves now, and in that role they have learned something important, something we honestly can't share with you, but it is something that informs us that we can't afford to stand in second place, and also affords us a possibility of getting out of second place much sooner than you might imagine. You two once took me to a place I know only by a number I swore I would never think of again, the executive said. It was CI 915402. You showed mercy and did not kill me, even though I would have killed you if I could have. Is it this power which is in play? Is it this power against which we might find ourselves in conflict? It is, Emma said gently. And it is this power which, if we succeed, you might own yourself one day within your expected lifetime. Give them the ships, the Yakuza leader said. 2 other leaders mumbled assent and looked at the Australian. You said you need at least 4 ships. I think we can give you 6 in total secrecy, and we don't honestly need them back. I assume you will also be keeping the Nostromo, and we can find a way to cover that. Evacuating the Nano Assembly Institute will be more difficult. That's 500 scientists and enough equipment to make full drives. The people have families, careers, entanglements. It will be impossible to hide that they have disappeared at once. We don't need them all, and we don't really need the equipment. It would speed our project along at the beginning, but really not by much. But we need at least 40 out of a list of 100 of the scientists which we could prepare, Emma said. I have an idea, Red said. And after he made his case, we finished off the scotch with another toast. The interviews were delicate because we had to be certain our offer would be accepted before we told the nano assembly researchers enough to give away our game. But the United States had once made far more people disappear into the southwestern desert to build the first atomic bomb. Red brought in psychology and propaganda experts who crafted a strategy for us, without knowing themselves exactly what the project was. Some of the scientists were crossed off of our list without even interviewing them. Those that had dependent children or intimately connected large extended families, we let be. We also crossed off those who had strong ties to ongoing projects in other venues. For those we chose to interview, we learned everything about them. And when you have curator powers, everything goes a bit deeper than you might realize. We knew about their affairs, their failing marriages, their sexual proclivities, their gambling debts, and their secret machinations to leapfrog their peers. We knew exactly what to offer them to make sure that when we told them that they might not come home for 20 years, they wouldn't care. And in the end, we noisily and publicly invited the ones who accepted our offer to a symposium in Hawaii. On the suborbital supergravity transport, one at a time, Emma and I clasped their hands and folded them to the great fold ship Palomino, which was parked on a surprisingly scenic ridge overlooking the Bay of Rainbows on the moon's Jura Mountains. Finally, it was just me and the pilot, who was one of Zeke's crew from Terra Nova. He set the explosive device to blow in 90 seconds. What about the black boxes? I asked. Nobody bothers with those anymore. They'll know it was a bomb. They might even figure out it was set by the pilot. That's what I'm making it look like if they ever find enough pieces to do an investigation. But if I ever even come back to Earth, by that time, nobody will even remember that this happened, and nobody will be surprised that there will be no bodies. I folded into the ship in the Jura Mountains, and a minute later, the transport was blown apart at an altitude of 170 kilometers over the South Pacific, with a tragic loss of 52 passengers and crew. Within a week, the Palomino was joined at Terra Nova by the Jupiter 2, the Limiting Factor, the Bellerophon, Ypres, and the Longshot, and the Far Star. We landed all of them on the surface of Terra Nova's stabilizing moon. You might think this a bit bold, putting such big things in plain sight should a curator wander by to have a look-see, but we had learned an interesting thing about the curators while working with them. The curators don't have remote sensing instruments. Everything they do is fold based. Humans built multiple space telescopes, gravity wave observatories, interferometers at every wavelength, and sent probes to peek at things all of the worlds of our solar system, even when that involved impractical chemical rockets. Curators don't do any of that. The curators learned from humans that the Andromeda Galaxy is on course to collide with the Milky Way in a billion years or so. The collision of black holes and neutron stars in the far reaches of the cosmos, as revealed by gravity waves, do not interest them. And similarly, a handful of small mountains on a remote moon would not affect their notice unless they were regularly using fold technology. They would, of course, eventually be regularly losing fold technology, but by that time it wouldn't matter anymore if the curators noticed our project. Ironically, it was the biology guys whose hardware made it possible to bootstrap the mech guys' nanoassembly lab. The curator's original nanoassembler tech had been heavily influenced by biology and made extensive use of custom designed proteins to deliver pre programmed sequences of heavy elements where they were needed, much as cellular mechanisms read DNA to create more proteins. The ancestors put a great deal of research to those protein based assembly mechanisms, perhaps centuries, but we didn't have to repeat the effort. We knew all of their structures already and how to use them. Of course, those biological mechanisms are fragile and not very reliable and impose all kinds of environmental restrictions on how you can do assembly. But that didn't matter because we also knew just what to use them to build next. What we call the hard nanoassemblers didn't have any of the biological limitations. They could operate in vacuum, underwater, or under intense radiation flux. In fact, they operated best with lots of ultraviolet light to power them. Once we had hard nanoassemblers, we didn't need the proteins anymore, and the bio people went back to working on mortality. One of the things we did once we had the tools was disassemble the curator nanites to see what made them tick. They were on the large side for what they were meant to do, and we were now able to establish that they were meant to enforce several kinds of hard limit on their use. as well as implementing the back door we had seen on Seville, which could be used to make nanite constructions disintegrate on command. We would use nanites. They were a useful tool, but ours would be half the size of the Curators version, and they would not be backdoored. The labs rapidly expanded, and with 7 ships, there was plenty of room for them, although there wasn't the reason we had taken the ships. Eventually, we made the most awkward call. We hadn't seen the human form Curator in nearly a year, and while we knew it was dangerous, neither him or I could stand the idea of ghosting him as we had laid our plans. We felt he would understand, and we had known him for a very long time. He showed up to our cabin on the Nostromo with a liter of fine anejo tequila. I was wondering if you would ever tell me what you were hiding from me, he said, by way of introduction. There is something we need to show you, Emma said. She held up her hand as she had when we reported the assassination attempt, and he replied in kind. But this time she simply unlocked all his blocks, as the period of emulation had unlocked mine, and I had then unlocked hers. Oh my, he said, and he sat down heavily. I brought shot glasses, and he silently poured. My friends, he said, raising his glass, and we clinked in toast. My human host was a 4-year-old boy, he said, and we realized that we had never, ever heard him or any other curator talk about the process of switching bodies. He had been mauled by a predator, and his body was ravaged by infection, and his tribe abandoned him, leaving him beyond to die as they moved on. This is over 60,000 Earth years ago, and I can't blame them. They had no way to help him. He had already formed all the most useful imprints for living as a human and hadn't yet formed any of the ones that would interfere with the dominance of my personality. There is, of course, a little in me, though. Engram synchronization always works both ways. We prefer to take young people so that existing personality interferes as little as possible with our curator legacy. I was moved to CI 291442, a world populated by a race of mammals much like yourselves, to wait for my body to mature. Since humans weren't curated, the assignment to live among you was one a lot of us didn't want. But I was relatively young. I had had less than 20 hosts and was barely a million years old. Humans represented a new and unknown challenge. I suppose this body has had an effect on me, though. We are taught to block the strong emotions that our hosts have and never to befriend those we curate. But I'm glad I broke that rule. You may not appreciate just what you have stumbled into. Indeed, is sweet the very process of trying to destroy you that's sweet gave you the keys to everything we ever made. I am realizing things I was never allowed to know myself. Some things just forgotten, some obviously buried to prevent you from doing what you are about to do, and some whose significance you won't realize for a while. Emma spoke. We wanted to know what you think your people will do about it, she said. If they knew, they would feel just as my host did in the hours after his tribe left him and it got dark and he began to realize he was truly alone. They would panic. They would lash out with all of their power, and they would not worry too much about what they might be destroying in the process. We were kind of afraid of that, I said, which is why I can't tell them, he said to our immense relief. Eventually, we will realize our project and it will become impossible to hide, Emma said. I worry about that. I suspect you are chasing both the mortality cure and implants of your own. Yes. Mortality is not a big problem. The witnesses have caused a bit of trouble by the fact of their existence, but we know that can be controlled. If you make implants for all of yourselves, though, he finished the shot and poured another. There are only a few tens of millions of us. We have never been very numerous. There is a slight rate of attrition as some of us tire of the game and retreat into the world of our implants, and new curators are recruited to replace them, but it is slight. We are suddenly confronted by a race of billions, all with our same capabilities. You will overrun us. That isn't our intention, I said. Even my human host at the age of 4 would have recognized the stupidity of trusting that, he said. We offer a promise, though, Emma said, and she told the curator our plan. As she spoke, his mood softened, and he nodded. I will keep your secret, he said. And even if I didn't, those who matter would have no problem with what you plan to do. If you can remain undiscovered until you are in a position of relative strength and you follow through with your plan, I don't think there will be a conflict between our peoples. Book 2, Part 27. 2 months later. The curators do not have a political system or hierarchy of power, as most species of the galaxy do. They have trusted authorities who are given special powers by consensus. In the most rarefied cases, such as control of amplifier belts or the guidance of critical path worlds, that consensus exists among other trusted authorities who are themselves appointed by what ultimately amounts to a consensus among a plurality of all curators who have bioform hosts interacting with the natural world. The meeting took place aboard the asteroid station that we had visited to witness the final engineered collision. Two of the curators work on that station, shepherding the powerful and dangerous machinery of planetary engineering. The other is the current final authority for distribution of amplifier belts. And he works closely with the planetary engineering group because at any given time, they generally have a dozen or so amplifier belts in use. The human form curator had suggested meeting in order to consider the misuse of an amplifier belt to attempt assassination of two curators. All of the participants had seen the recording of what our silver-furred supposed mentor had done to us after luring us to the stabilizing moon of Seville. We were eavesdropping through the curator's implant, which was not allowed and not supposed to be possible. But when Emma unlocked his implant, he discovered that a number of received truths that most curators took for granted were, in fact, also locks. It was not supposed to be possible to relay the proceedings of a group of curators to an unseen outside party without their knowledge. But our curator had discovered that this is indeed possible. So we looked through his eyes and heard through his ears as he described the rogue curator's plan and explained why in this case it had failed. The curators also didn't have the concept of crime or justice among themselves, since it was supposed to be all but impossible to kill a curator. It was this aspect of the misdeed that obviously grabbed their attention. Of course, we will never allow her to have access to an amplifier again, the keeper of amplifiers assured everyone. And the young of any species may be more vulnerable than mature members, the lead planetary engineers added. If it only comes as a surprise that emulation saved Human J because no newly inducted curator has been tested this way for many aeons. Still, the best case, even had they been mature, is that they would have been forced to find new hosts, which would have left them vulnerable and ineffective for some time as their new hosts matured. This could be an effective attack on some larger plan if they had been critical participants. This does concern us, the other engineer said. We must probe her motives. Has she been notified of the meeting? She is waiting for our summons. Is there any other business before we question her? Our curator quietly asked Emma and me if we should bring anything else up, and we declined. She appeared, silver fur shimmering, and was obviously taken aback by the presence of the human form curator. Oh, you're actually one of us, she said after a moment. Such an unreliable species. We were told that you are the last individual who see the new human curators, the head planetary engineer said. I was mentoring them in the ways of critical path guidance. We folded away, presumably in their case home, from CI 1859229 after installing a tablet of writing there. Are you sure there wasn't another meeting somewhere else? The amplifier keeper asked. Of course. Why would there be? Such as a meeting on the moon of Exile World CI 1729140, which was only possible because you were wearing an amplifier to break through its fold inhibitor. She betrayed a slight startle. Then she became defiant. I don't know how you found out, but I was just doing what had to be done before it was too late. You betrayed a fundamental covenant by lying about your intentions for the amplifier, and you tried to kill 2 inducted curators, an act which hasn't been attempted for aeons. They were young and unformed, and they weren't like us. Humans break their covenants all the time and don't even consider it a flaw. They were crazy, reckless agents of unpredictable change, and if you imbeciles gave them our powers, if we had waited until the consensus allowed that a mistake had possibly been made, it would have been far too late. So I acted. Your actions could also be brought to bear against any of us, the junior engineer said. We are backed up. Any of us can find a new host. There is no way they were fully backed up so soon after their induction, and I was counting on that to make sure they stayed dead, or at least came back incomplete enough to not be a threat. It was not your place to make and execute such a judgment, our curator said. Humans have a saying about that which makes it clear no one individual should be allowed such responsibility. Your own mind is addled by wearing that body for all these years and living among them. These 2 particular humans were agents of one of the most dangerous, unpredictable changes ever made in the modern garden, introducing a new form of fold drive, and worse, making sure everybody in the galaxy can build it. Your hatred of innovation exceeds the boundary of sensible caution, the lead engineer said. Our ancestors did not intend the garden to be a static place. We know that from their contemporary notes. We have to consider that we may be the ones who need to learn. The new fold drive offers opportunities to increase interaction between all of our children. Exactly. And we are helpless to watch it unfold. That is silly, our curator said, and he had to go to some length to find an appropriate galactic common phrase to express the concept of silly. We are still the most powerful force in the galaxy by orders of magnitude. Silently to us, he winked, for now. The new fold drive will be an opportunity for us to use our power to guide the developing changes, and most of all, for us to learn something new about how innovation affects our garden. Are we so jaded that we are afraid of learning? You're just mad because I killed your friends, she spat. Oh no, I am amused because after all the trouble you went to, you failed. Jay was emulated. His emulation temporarily separated his implant from his body so that it could pass at sublight speed beyond the influence of the fold inhibitor, find a suitable projectile in the ring of the nearest gas giant, and hit the inhibitor with a relativistic impactor. As a result, the exile is broken and my friends are alive and safe. Her eyes got far wider than what I thought her biology would allow, and she looked about at each of her interrogators, looking for some clue that this was a lie or a hoax. When she didn't find that, she hardened and her eyes contracted to narrow slits. So that's how it is, she said. I was too late after all. A relativistic impactor, you say? How many of us, even in our maturity, would have thought of that? This is the force you have unleashed against us. Our garden is doomed. And she closed her eyes, and then fire jetted out of the sockets, her ears, and her mouth. Her host body dropped to the floor, its brain incinerated. What the fuck was that? Emma and I both signaled. Oh my, our curator said out loud. She burned her bioform. And with that, the meeting was over because there was nothing more to discuss. Later on, our curator met us on the Nostromo, and this time we brought the booze. Some of the scientists had set up an old school still and were relaxing by teaching themselves the old art of plain distilling. Their product was water clear liquid fire and seemed an appropriate tribute to the silver furred curator in her passing. She's not gone, you know, the curator said as he very carefully sipped his hooch. She's fully backed up, and nobody can stop her from going anywhere in the galaxy and finding a new host. If she ever exercises her curator powers again in a public way, we'll be able to identify her through her implant ID. But she could come back anywhere in the galaxy. Then what was the deal with the fire in her head? Emma asked. We usually don't wait for our bioform host to naturally die. We might get an assignment that requires a host of a different species or just want to change of pace. But the implant won't separate while the host is still alive and functional. That would create the possibility of the implant making two bioforms of the same personality, which we find repugnant. So if you want to switch to a new host, you have to destroy your old one. The process is consciously controlled and automatic once initiated. Emma and I looked at one another. We were finding this in our unlocked pseudo memories together. We had simply not thought to wonder about such a thing. I also note that, like letting you eavesdrop, voluntarily separating from my human host without killing it is one of those new abilities you seem to have unlocked for my implant. I am realizing that we have lived with some of these limits for so long that there may be none of us left who remember that they are artificially imposed. Memories which are never exercised gradually self erase, and those of us who live the longest really remember a little but the most important highlights of our early lives. Put artificial blocks in all the mundane records that don't self erase, and eventually nobody remembers that they are even there. We soon came to understand that the biggest reason we could trust him to keep the secret of our true activities at Terra Nova was that if our cover was blown, his enhancement would also be blown. And he was learning things. And through his reports, we came to a much clearer understanding of what other curators were able to do and likely to do. Even with foreknowledge of what we would need to do, the path ahead of us was daunting. It didn't represent billions of years of advancement because its advancement had effectively halted, partly due to those locks that had been in place while the ancestors were still alive. It may have represented a few 100,000 years of active, curious research. We came to suspect it might have even been the limits they placed on their own technology that doomed the ancestors when their aging sun scorched their homeworld. We had identified about 20 stages of new technology we would need to create, each dependent on the last one being fully completed in order to implement all the functionality of our implants. Each of those stages would have been a major project on its own, and they involved some different and distantly related techniques. But we would not be wasting our time on false starts, dead ends, or wondering whether the next stage was even possible before starting. Fortunately, we did not think the curators would find it odd if we spent a century or two shooting the giants of Terra Nova. They were very patient. They knew we were very proud and stubborn, and they would all be happy to see us wasting our time on something so futile and harmless.
That flame, the flame shooting at our eyes and ears. It did. You got me by surprise on that. You got
I
me.
I didn't realize it was going to happen until I wrote it. That was one of those things writers talk about where you don't know what's going to happen next and you just, oh shit.
Burned her fucking head open. Hey, Roger,
Yeah,
I'm going to the bathroom real quick. Tell him where to get Mopey.
sure. If you would like a paper copy of my book, The Metamorphosis of Prime Intellect, the best place to get it is not necessarily Amazon, but Lulu, Lulu.com. They have very good customer service, and even the price will be the same because of the contracts that are signed, but I get a lot more of the money because Lulu has to charge the same as Amazon, but they give me the cut that Amazon and the distribution chain normally get because they are the publisher of origin. So uh, now for ebooks, Amazon's great. If you want it for your Kindle or in any other EPUB format, uh, there are they're great. There are also sources on my site at localroger.com where you can get different ebook, EPUB pub versions. So that's good. But if you want a paper copy, I think you would be doing me a solid to get it from Lulu instead of Amazon or one of the other providers. On the other hand, if you got a gift card or something, that's great because I get most of my revenue from Amazon. That's just where the stuff
Cookie
happens.
crumbles.
Yeah.
All right. Resume.
Okay. Part 28. Book 2, part 28. 18 months later. Our friendly curator mostly went back to his job watching over the humans of Earth as if nothing unusual was going on. Amusingly, it seems that his colleagues thought he was a mole keeping an eye on us through his occasional visits to Terra Nova, while he was actually giving us detailed information on the differences between those implants that were still locked compared to our own. He also traced the exact scope of the emergency protocol which had saved us at Seville, and it did indeed perform a blanket unlock operation in certain specific types of mortal bioform peril. He believed it had been introduced before serial immortality was very reliable, and before the locks had gotten quite so much to lock out. It was like a great deal more. It had simply been forgotten. Our biology guys completed synthesis of the first nanoassemblers, which were actually biological in form and rather fragile. Then we used those to progress to making the covalently bonded nanoassemblers and our first prototype self-replicating nanites. This allowed us to bootstrap ourselves into the business of generalized nanoassembly very quickly. But we skipped what had obviously been an entire era during which the ancestors had relied exclusively on the biological assemblers. We had a team ready to start fleshing out our version of nanite tech, even though the nanites wouldn't lead directly to implants. Other teams would be working on the biohelpers for the mortality cure and the bulk mass assemblers for making macroscopic objects. But nanites would be useful in their own right. When we finally outgrew the giant ships parked on the moon, we could set the nanites loose, expanding our facilities as needed, and our nanites wouldn't be encumbered by locks and back doors. One day, our curator brought us a sealed envelope. I received this in the physical mail yesterday, he said. There was no return address, and it was addressed to King J and Queen Emma of Earth, care of a certain human curator. He found this odd because the identity of curator agents was generally only known to certain high ranking government officials and security officers. I opened it. It was hand printed in English. Dear invasive vermin, I suppose my reprobate ex-colleague will be reading this over your shoulder. That is fine, as he should learn what he created too. Having lost all I ever believed in, I realized that my only hope to understand what had happened to me would be to become as you. So I came to Earth and I sought a host. But I did not seek an infant host as my kind do by habit. No, I wanted to understand you as you exist in your maturity. I wanted to feel your defiance. I wanted the one of you who lives the truth of your existence, not one who hides your reality behind platitudes. Fortunately, your kind have stopped the practice of killing those of you who transgress those norms so many of you pretend to respect. I found my host locked up in one of your institutions, and when I offered him the opportunity to slip his bondage, he didn't ask much about what you like to call the fine print in my offer. I let myself feel his emotions. His pleasure in killing his mother was the most intense thing I have ever felt. Human emotions are such a wonder. He had such want and such need and such hatred, but also so much fear. When I whispered to him that I could give him powers, he did not care about my own purpose or that he will ultimately die. I have given him the opportunity to experience more than he ever believed possible. And when I burn him and move on, he won't even care that little of him is incorporated into my backup. His memories aren't of much interest anyway, being mostly pain and fear and frustration. The memories we are forming together will last. You humans are certainly adaptable. He has taken to being my host with a willingness and enthusiasm none of us would ever expect from a mature adult of an alien species. He knows his world with a native agility none of us ever really learn. But with my powers, he can now evade all the limits that are placed on him by his own kind. Is it not ironic that this individual can only truly be human when an alien gives him extraordinary powers to defy his peers? I did have to quickly understand how savagely he hates females before letting him know too much of my own true nature. Freed from the locks of his society and its enforcement, I have made it possible for him to do the only thing he really cares about, which is to kill women. As he realizes how far beyond sanction he is now, each performance is more savage and elaborate. Having failed at my own only attempt to kill humans, I take a quiet satisfaction in watching from behind his eyes as he realizes his mission. He is of you, but he would kill you, all for the pleasure if it were possible. We are even in fundamental agreement on this because he has no designs on aliens like myself. He only cares to kill those who created him, his own kind. That would be your kind. I wanted you to know that you did not win. That seems to be a thing with your kind. Well, you are back, and now I am back, and I am in your home raping and killing your daughters and mothers. And when it gets to be too much of a problem, I will burn this bioform. And he is already okay with the fact that I will probably have to do that sometime much sooner than thousands of years from now. And then I will go find someone else as a representation of your species. I'm given to understand there are human women who hate men as much as this male hates most women. It might be interesting to ride one of them for a while to see it from the other side. Anyway, I just wanted to let you know that I'm back and I'm not going anywhere. Put a picture of me on the one of your big birds before you shoot it. I won't mind, nor will the girl that I killed tonight. Oh, and in the spirit of being human, I have decided to adopt that silly custom you all seem to find so meaningful and take a name for myself. You see, I realize that since I can't give my bioform hosts the cure, and I'm going to be encouraging to transgress a lot of your supposed norms, I'll probably be switching bioforms frequently, and their names just won't do for these missives. So, yours in glorious hatred, Nemesis. You have got to be fucking kidding me, Emma said. This is not good, the curator added. When you said she could come back anywhere in the galaxy, this is not quite what I expected, I said. She doesn't understand it at all, Emma said. Yes, we have people like her host. We've always had them, but we don't have many, and there have always known about them. That's why our society has systems to limit the chaos they can cause. Laws, police, courts, prisons, like antibodies, hunting cancer cells. How well do your antibodies deal with a cancer cell that can't be killed, can't be detected, and can move around invisibly, changing its form? The curator said very seriously. If you brought this up to my people, I can tell you exactly how they would react. They would say there is nothing they can do about her, and they wouldn't be eager to figure anything out for the same reason they weren't happy about what she tried to do to you, because anything that would be effective against her would also be effective against them. They would say it is Earth's problem, And as long as she stays on Earth, the curators would probably not care. And I'm not sure. I'm sure she has made the same calculation. You can't be serious, I said. I'm afraid that I am. But maybe I have lived in this body too long. I need to think about this. Attend to your project here. I will figure out how to deal with the rogue curator. If your people as a group can't do anything, how can you do anything as an individual? He tapped his temple. You gave me superpowers, he said with a rare smile. I'm not sure how much of an advantage that gives you over your peers, Emma said. Oh, but I have learned much from you and your species, he said. It doesn't have to be much of an advantage, especially if it's one your opponent doesn't know that you have. I don't have any idea what I can do just yet, but I know I am probably the only being in the galaxy with a realistic chance of stopping her. You're letting your host's emotions out, aren't you? Emma said suspiciously. Perhaps a little, he said. You are my friends, and this is a grave insult to your world, which I am certain my people will not attempt to correct. She does not expect any response at all. Attend to your project, and let me consider my options. The situation cannot stand. We had acquired more white lightning from the PhD distillers, and with that I got the decanter and some glasses and poured us shots. The situation cannot stand, we agreed as we watched him take on his mission.
That is that's some darkness I haven't read since Moby.
There are a couple of passages in the Curators where everybody was like, where I took on the voice of an alien writing a little missive, and everyone found them greatly entertaining.
Well, that's what pulled me into Moby was like we were talking beforehand. The reason why the video game Ready or Not can be so brutal is because it's funded by itself or funded by fans. It's beholden to no one. That's what pulled me into Moby. Was like cool, cool, and then couple chapters in being like, oh fuck, this is just like all the filters turned off.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't experience that for the first time again. So, in a weird, fucked up way, like being an alien demonic entity, I just got to experience Moby for the first time again. Like, oh yeah, just like when you think it's finished, it just keeps going down. You keep thinking you hit the bottom of the Marianas Trench, and then it's just blacker and colder. That's kind of fucked up. That's kind of the genesis of our friendship. Is I was sucked into your writing style and reached out to you. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah. Oh, actually, I think that was the last one for this reading.
No, yeah, you're
Something
good.
rude here.
No, you're good.
And that's nice. So 5. Getting old sucks. Did I mention that getting old sucks?
Well, my dad has constantly told me not to get old,
Okay.
so
Supposed to do part 29 is the last one for this. So let me see where we are. Okay, so there is one more episode.
all right.
So let's put this here, put this back. And because I have the master plan on the bulletin board behind the computer here.
Fuck yeah.
Okay. The Curators, Book 2, Part 29. A steady stream of tourists came to visit the Nostromo and fire exotic weapons and the dangerous animals of Terra Nova. Few of them were aware of the vast works going on across Terra Nova's moon, which were producing real miracles. The mortality cure included a list of about 200 standard biogenic fixes that could be applied with pure genetic and protein editing techniques. A typical species only needs 30 to 60 of them, and when we started, we didn't know which ones humans would need. But 5 years later, we had implemented them all, and some of our older team members were beginning to look noticeably younger. Our self-replicating nanites were still very limited, but the bulk nanoassemblers, which would be a precursor technology to almost everything else, were coming along. We needed them to do the really long-term biological fixes as well as our hoped-for implants. Red came to see us one day with a silver sphere the size of a golf ball, and when we refused to guess what it was, he proudly told us it was a multiplex supergravity fold drive. With this, you could really build a spacecraft in your backyard, power it from a tablet battery, and take it to the stars, he said. But while it was an impressive leap beyond our own technology, this was not what we were ultimately after. We had to learn to create a shaped fold aperture and to create something we called a massive microfold array, which was necessary to both determine the shapes for fold apertures and to produce the neural interface by which our implants were controlled. We couldn't really even start on the neural interface until we had the microfold relays perfected, and we were honestly probably going to have practical nanites before we got that far. New members joined our team regularly, brought to the interview by word of mouth from the other team members. It wasn't hard to convince them to join, especially once we had the first anti-aging factors working. Our curator also came to visit us once in a while, and after a year or so, he revealed to us that he had commandeered an amplifier belt. Wouldn't they kind of notice that it was missing? My people operate on a fundamental assumption that if you have the code to call it and unlock it, then you must have the right to do so, he said. I'm sure the fellow I interviewed with at the time of Nemesis defection just shrugged and put it off to someone his equal, taking it for what must be a valid project. So you're going to make the Earth move? Emma teased. Not really. I realized that since you also gave me the ability to reprogram these things, that I can use it to implement a short-range fold inhibitor that can be used without shutting down your entire world. Wouldn't she be able to fold a short distance out of it? I asked. Yes, but if she folds from within the inhibitor field, I will be able to trace and follow her. I can make the field just large enough to prevent her escape. How would you pin her down, though? If she detects that there's no escape, she'll just burn her bioform and go find another psychopath to seduce. We're alive today because the implant can move normally through space despite the fold inhibitor once it's disconnected from its bioform. I haven't worked that out yet. Unfortunately, there does not seem to be an external way to override a conscious directive by the owner of an implant, even with our unlocked powers in the amplifier. If I could prevent her from consciously acting, I could disable her implant and reset it. But she can easily stop me if she becomes aware of what I'm trying, and there are all kinds of alarms that can't be disabled. The implant will give her every opportunity to counteract with an external threat command before executing it. We celebrated our progress with shots of fine Australian scotch and speculated on what might come next. She isn't trying to wipe out your species. If she ever did want that, he said, she is killing a woman every 2 or 3 days, but she skips all over the earth so that any particular population center only sees her work every month or so. She's created a noticeable statistical uptick on the rate of horrific killings, but few human agencies seem to suspect that a single entity is responsible for this planet-wide phenomenon. Instead, they're acting as if it might be some kind of statistical indicator about an emergent tendency in your own people. And if any humans did suspect the truth, they would have no way to track her and prove it. I can detect her fold operations at close range, but even then, on short range fold like that, the signal is so faint that even with the amplifier, it takes me several hours to solve for the precise real world location, by which time she's moved on. At that rate, if she was trying to wipe us out, she would be about as successful as we expect to be here at Terra Nova, and for the same reason, Emma said. Once in a while, he brought a taunting letter from Nemesis. We had hoped these would reveal some deterioration into effective madness, but she seemed to have formed a comfortable and stable relationship with her homicidal human body partner. What would have been crazy risks for him as an ordinary human were now safe, and her host fed his inner demons with ease. Nemesis herself professed to enjoy watching the bloodbath through his eyes. He's quite the artist, you know, she quipped several times. Doesn't this go against millions of years of life experience on her part? Emma asked after one of these. You've never taken a new host, the curator said. Even a child brings all kinds of new alien impressions and feelings that must be managed. There are good reasons we don't take adult hosts. Even though the curator's backup image is much older than the consciousness of her host, an adult host brings a very rich worldview of its own. This may be particularly true of a human host. And once the implant connects to the biological brain, which does the thinking, even if the implant is working to synchronize it to the backup, it is probably less the case that she is using her host than that he is using her. But she said little of him was going into the backup, and he knew he wouldn't live all that long. And he probably doesn't care. There may be more of him going into the backup than she realizes as her consciousness bends to his form. He is living the ultimate dream of risk free ego gratification, and she is high on the intensity of his feelings, which she isn't even trying to modulate. That can make her extraordinarily dangerous, Emma said. I agree, which is why I've taken on this project. You know, we could help, I said, but he shook his head. When Nemesis rails about irresponsibility, I understand her point. It's partly on us for failing to curate you, but humans also have a great sense of responsibility, which I've observed often in my life among you. Not all of you, but many of you are unafraid to step up and do what is necessary for your families or your allies. And Nemesis is my problem. If we created humans by our neglect, then we just as surely created her by that same neglect. And my people are not stepping up. I don't believe there is a force in the galaxy that could convince them to. If I may, I think it is the most human thing that I can do to step up in place of my people who are shirking their responsibility. We appreciate that, Emma said. We just wanted you to know that you don't need to go it alone. You have more on your plate here than even my own people could imagine. Attend to your project and let me attend to the problem of Nemesis. I promise you that if I get completely stuck, I will ask you to become involved. Fair enough, I said, and Emma nodded and we finished off the scotch. And that is reading 14.
I like Nemesis. It it's kind of like a scientific explanation of a demon, right? I mean,
Yes.
it's a eons old entity that's getting novel experiences, kind of like Mopey. What would you do if you could experience everything? Isn't it counted to millions of years, right? You would think wisdom. Yeah, it might just be like, fuck it. I've tried every flavor of ice cream. I haven't tried these.
Humanity, and I wrote it for humanity. Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
So she is getting off on being human.
Yeah, no, and it's once you've tried every experience, what about the fringes, right? I mean, that's what you would experience once you've done everything. I mean, once you've been a billionaire model, rock star, whatever, what would it be like to be like an Al Qaeda terrorist? What would drive your mind to hijacking a plane? Like, what would that be? It wouldn't be your first option, I don't think. But if you've lived every life, if you've been Michael Jordan and Tom Brady and Marilyn Monroe, and yeah, after the trillionth time, you might be like, what was percolating in Hitler's head? You probably would. And if you're saying, no, I wouldn't, well, give it a trillion more lifetimes. And
Mhm.
eventually you'd probably just be like, I just kind of, what is it? You know, it's like tasting a sauce or something. Be like, I've never had that sauce. And then you try it and you're like, oh, fuck. Like it might not be good. You'd eventually, if you had eternity,
Or it
you'd
might just
eventually,
be fucking delicious.
or it might be. And that's the thing. It's kind of like what Rogan said about, being gay. It's like people that don't want gay marriage legalized are one, bigots, or two, secretly terrified that dicks are delicious. It might be, dude. And that's some darkness. I like Nemesis though.
Yeah. Well, of course I have to kill her, but
Well, I mean,
that's
you know, live by the sword, die by
But
the
it won't
sword.
be
But
easy.
yeah, I like that. But I also like that very like the human characteristic of a curator. Like they don't want to really figure out how to kill her because that would be
Mhm.
how do you kill us, right? It's like, do we really want the perfect nuke that can like penetrate a mile of rock and take out like a Chinese bunker? Not
Yeah.
really. Not really, because all you gotta do is leak those designs and now we're fucked.
Yeah. We're starting to see the vulnerabilities of the curators.
Mm.
And toward the end of their second of 4 books. Uh, Now the third and fourth books are much shorter. So there's one more reading in book 2, and books 3 and 4 will each be 4 readings each.
Oh,
And then there's a coda, a final reading that sort of shows the end game where things go afterward. So yeah, I was intent on not performing, not doing the cardinal sin of humanity. Fuck yeah, which is to start a series and then leave it half finished, which apparently several writers have done, and as they say, blue balls, HFY syndrome. So I made sure to actually finish it.
yeah, it's the worst if you don't finish a story. I mean, you can so easily finish stories. You just kill everyone. Doesn't have to make sense. You could just end a
Yeah,
novel and be like, and then the one day there was an asteroid.
yeah. And I didn't do it that
I
way.
know, I know. But I'm
So,
just
yeah,
as a
unknowing.
personal critique. I do like I think I've said it before. I would like to see animated one day the battles against the giant monsters where you go out and in my mind it's like a field surrounded by like a mountain range on the horizon and it's just you and like a Goliath. I think that would be fantastic if you ever got that animated.
Yeah. I personally, I love the image of uh Emma going out there with the 2 ball bearings,
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah. These are my
yeah.
nuts. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
There
everyone thinks she's just gonna die.
yeah.
Just,
Yeah. There's some paradoxical imagery like the naked woman, but she's like but she's got like steel balls. Yeah. Touche. But hey Roger, not to cut this one off on a sudden clip, but like I told you,
yeah, I remember that. So
I
yeah,
got some errands I gotta run real quick, but we will resume on Sunday.
I will be here.
Go grab his fucking book if you haven't already. Listen, if it's not Ukraine, we're gonna be at war with China. If it's not China, it's gonna be a strain of monkeypox, and if it's not that, it's gonna be an AI. The reality is this is eventually something's gonna kill you, and if it's none of those, it's gonna be me. So just buy the fucking book. Don't make me become nemesis.
My wife and I were actually talking last night about, how things might end because we're getting old. And of course, we've, paid off this house, but
Hmm.
we're in southern Louisiana. And so, but we're not in New Orleans. We're
Yeah.
actually 15 feet above sea level. Woo.
Ooh.
But she was saying, it's like, well, what happens? And I was like, we've had a pretty good run. And
Write
uh,
it out.
honestly, if we end up getting overwhelmed by the sea level changing, tens of millions of people are going to be there first.
Yeah.
And by the time it affects us, there's either going to be a coping
Complete
mechanism of
civil
some
breakdown.
kind,
Oh,
or it won't fucking
or it'll
matter.
be total civil breakdown. Yeah.
Yeah. Or it'll be just like, okay, it's time to,
Fuck
buy a
that.
gun
Write
and
it
2
out.
bullets.
Yeah, write it. Yeah, no, write it out. Write it the fuck out. Start start like getting like water sealing caulking, water sealant caulking. Fucking it's yeah. Fuck that. Go down with a fight. Turn your house into a submersible.
Yeah. Well, at least it's brick.
Yeah. Yeah, that
That's a
helps.
start. That
Well, I mean,
helps.
I guess everything is a submersible in theory.
But, it's, if the world is going to end, then trying to overcome that at a certain point becomes a losing bet. You just have
Well,
to
and you
accept
don't
that.
And you don't. I mean, and there's some people like a Dale. It's in Dale's DNA to survive. I
Yeah.
don't think even Dale has a choice over that, right? It's like a reflex when the doctor hits your shin.
Mm.
But for lesser men like you and I, to me, I always kind of look at it. I'm like, what life am I even striving towards in this? People like when the sea levels rise and there's fires all across the Great Plains and pandemics wipe out the people. Like, where are you going to be surviving? I'm like, I'm not. I don't.
Yeah.
I
It's,
fucking bitch when I can only keep my I can keep my air conditioner at 60 instead of 55.
I mean,
I'm not cut out for Mad Max.
I write stories that aren't even publishable, and I program computers.
Yeah.
If
Roger
those
and I,
things,
we're in our sweet spot. You and I are in our Amazon forest. Like this is where we
yes.
live. All right. And when this habitation goes down, you and I become extinct creatures. It's just what it is. We will exist as light waves propagating out into the universe. Roger
Yeah.
and I are not meant to be carrying belt-fed machine guns through a war-torn populace. We get sunburned. We don't want to do it. We like slippers.
Too many mosquitoes.
Yeah. That's y'all's. You guys can rebuild it from the ashes. We will reincarnate in 10,000 years when you have computers and ergonomic chairs. It's just what it is. And you know what? You could say that's defeatist. I think it's called knowing yourself. I know who I am.
Mhm.
I remember my little brother's, again, I got to run, but at my little brother's wedding, I was saying, like, to my uncle, how, like, I really don't like leaving my apartment. I really, I like doing the podcast and I play video games with friends, but I really don't like seeing people. And I enjoy going to get groceries in the evening. I like waking up at noon and working out. And he was that's you really like that. And my mom was like, she's like, I've come to learn that he knows who he is. And at the very least, that takes most people 60 years, and he's figured it out in 30.
Well,
I
yeah,
know what I am.
I think you might be a little bit on the spectrum,
Oh,
or,
absolutely.
and that's not a bad thing
No,
because
I love my brain. I love who I
yeah,
am.
I think autism has made some absolutely fucking brilliant people, uh, and it's a strength because it's contrary to what everyone else is doing.
Well, it's
And
yeah,
I appreciate that. When I watch you and I find you inspirational.
thank you.
So yeah,
It's
it's like your commitment to this podcast channel is something I don't think I could do.
it's an
So that I appreciate that. I think you're doing a great job. I think
thank you.
you've gotten the quality of guests that you've gotten. It's like nobody would have ever guessed that you would have been able to get some of these people on.
Fuck, fuck yeah.
And it's like you're doing, and you get them on, and then they come back.
Well,
They're
yeah,
like, they love you because you ask good questions, you provide a great environment,
thank you.
and uh, that is something. I mean, I communicate with machines. It's my primary thing. I said when Dances with Wolves came out, I made the comment that if the Indians gave me a name like that, it would probably be Talks to Computers.
Yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah.
but
Refined silicon, refiner.
yeah,
Yeah,
so yeah, you're doing great,
thank you.
and I am honored to be your guest
Thank you,
when
sir. Well, you're
you
more
want to
than
have
that,
me on.
Roger. You're my friend. And I
Likewise.
I don't think you're wrong. I do think I'm on the spectrum. And I used to say that as a joke, and now I just look at it as kind of a matter of fact. I'm like, it it's not you hear enough times, you're like, how do you focus on something? After 30 years of it, you start to go, oh, this isn't it's one thing to say, oh, it's just grit. It's another thing to be like, I don't think I have the same wiring. Because there's quote unquote normal shit that I can't do. Can't do it
Mhm.
all. Can't be around people that long. Can't.
That's one thing that I've always I I was watching right before we started. I was watching the scene from Star Trek: The Wrath of Khan, where Khan has surprised Kirk and the Enterprise, sandbagged them, knocked them out, and is coming back around to kill them. And Kirk is asking, "Get me the prefix code for the Reliant. And the girl is like, what? And he says, it's important to know how things work. And I believe it is important to know how things work on a starship and everywhere else. I'm currently watching through my Netflix DVD subscription, Masters of Sex, about Masters and Johnson. And theirs is a very colorful story, it turns out. But William Masters' basic thing was no one knows how sex works. And learning how sex works could be valuable. It could be an incredible thing. Now, of course, everyone at first thought that just meant he was a pervert. And that was why no one else was studying sex in the scientific way. But he went through with that. And as a result, now we know things about ourselves as a species that were not known in the 1950s. So that's, we all have our little place that we might fit on the chessboard or wherever. And I think you're doing a great job. I'm hoping that I have done as good a job as I can.
Fuck yeah.
But we ultimately, it's just, life will decide.
I think we all are who we are. And you can either A, discover it, or B, not discover it. Or you can A.1, discover it and accept it, or A.2, discover it and hate it. But you are the shaped puzzle piece that you are.
And of course, that was the topic of our last podcast.
Yeah, no, yeah, it was. It's so instead of trying to like fight what I am, although
and in fact, it's funny because after that, after we recorded that, I got to a point in Masters of Sex where it turns out that one of the main characters, William Masters' boss at his first hospital, is gay. And he tries conversion therapy. Well, we know how that went.
Yeah. So, it's, you can either try to I tried to force it out of myself in college, like, oh no, I got a party, I gotta go do this, I gotta go do that. And I do think there's some drawbacks. I do think I need to try I do need to try to be more social. I'm admittedly a little too antisocial.
Party boy conversion therapy.
And I tried. Dude, you can't get a square through a round peg. It's just, you can try, but there's a lot of friction.
I know.
And nothing makes me happier than waking up and working. At the Teddy Roosevelt quote that I hadn't seen until like a month ago. By far and away, the best life has to offer is working hard at something worth working hard at. Every day I wake up and I add another podcast. I work out a little bit. I'll listen to another hour of an audiobook. And I just ding, 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 just slowly move the needle.
And my happiest days are when they give me a problem at work that can't be solved, and I solve it.
And you crack. There's nothing like
this can't be done. Well, except
it's like untying shoelaces that have been tied forever, and you finally get the knot. And you go, oh yeah, that's what it is. But I am fucking running myself out of time now, Roger.
Yeah, I think you gotta get to
I'm a fucking idiot. I gotta run. Roger Williams, go get the book, Mopey. Roger, I'll see you next week.